Oh, guy, why should we care?
Wait, what?
We are on the air. All right, so I'm here today with Cult of Ham. I'll just call him Matthew and Humane Mind. These two have been disagreeing over in a Twitter chat, and these two are getting in each other's throats. So I thought instead, as Cult of Ham suggested, to have a debate, and I offered to host it. So I guess whoever started this, I guess you can have the opening statement.
Oh, it's definitely Cult of Ham that started this.
All right.
Yeah, I did kind of start this shit show. Basically, I just got sick and tired of seeing all this bullshit on the news that, oh, fuck Colin Kaepernick, he's protesting the military, and all this shit. He hates the veterans. He's literally taking them and shitting on their face. No. How about you assholes actually look and pay attention to what he's protesting? He's protesting police violence. And even if you're going to go with the veterans issue, what did the veterans what did the veterans supposedly fought for? What did they all think they were fighting for? They were fighting for our rights, for life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, freedom of speech, freedom to protest. So why do people get so angry when people like Colin Kaepernick use the right that you fought for to protest a serious societal issue like police brutality?
All right. So as a veteran myself, I can tell you exactly why. So I've served alongside many people, and I've actually buried people who have fought for our country. And they do fight for American values. They don't fight for the president. They don't fight for the government. They don't fight for their senators. They fight for their friends and family. Every single one of them. Now, when you're saying that, oh, Colin Kaepernick is actually protesting something else, in which case I agree with him if he's protesting police brutality, which I believe he is. The problem is he's doing it the wrong way, because so many people associate the American flag not with the government, not with the police force, not with the people who are abusing their positions of authority, but with the country as a whole. This means everybody, not just the people that you see that are the problem. This is like saying I'm protesting crime, therefore we should kick out all the blacks. And you're like, oh, that's a stupid position, because if you look at the proportion that is actually doing the wrong thing, the proportion of black criminals who are in jails, that is a small portion. And if you say that it is all blacks, that is a huge problem. And this is the same case where you're saying, oh, I hate this one aspect of the government, or I hate this one aspect of our country, and yet you are protesting the country as a whole, rather than the small aspect, rather than the portion that you should be protesting. And that's why people, when they see you protesting the flag, well, then if you have to explain why you are protesting the flag, then it is a shitty protest. It is a stupid protest. When you protest something, they should be able to know by your actions that what exactly cause you are protesting.
That's the end of your statement there?
Yeah, that's going to be the end of my statement. Is your protest should be obvious and specified to the action or cause that you are protesting.
All right.
How would Colin Kaepernick properly protest police brutality in a way that would gain as much attention as kneeling down for the flag? And by the way, wouldn't kneeling down for the flag be a sign of even more respect? Because when you're standing, doesn't that usually seem rude? But
no,
that's another.
You're talking about during the national anthem.
Yeah, but so if you fought for rights and freedoms, why are you so pissed about someone disrespecting a theme song or a piece of cloth?
Wow. Yeah, theme song. Wow, are you serious?
Yeah.
It is. Maybe that's the entire reason behind this argument, is you see these symbols of our countries not as what they actually represent, but just as property, as things. You see them as it's just a song, and it's
Yeah,
just
it
it's
is
just a
literally
piece of
just a
cloth.
song. It is literally just a piece of cloth. I hold no
That's your
loyalty.
problem.
I
So,
hold no
okay.
loyalty to this country because
Oh, well, then
what I
leave.
hold loyalty to is the principles that this country is supposed to
Well,
represent.
that's
I hold absolute loyalty to the idea of the freedom of speech. I hold absolute loyalty to the idea of the freedom of protest, the freedom, the ability to petition, right to privacy, all these things that our government has come to stand in antithesis to. Our government is the greatest purveyor of violence and tyranny on the entire planet. It quite literally has backed, I think, was 73% of all recognized dictatorships. How the fuck can you say that the flag represents freedom when the country behind it has done the opposite?
because the country and the flag are not one and the same. The government is not the people. 1% of the population has served in the United States military. 1%, maybe 2% if you're counting back through entire history. So you're saying that 2% of the entire population represents the entire country throughout its entire history. That is asinine.
No, I'm
That
saying
is like saying
the
that
flag
transgender
represents the
entire
country.
Don't cut each
States.
other off. Don't cut each other off.
That is like saying that the entire United States is nothing but transgenders because, hey, I guess they're 2 to 3% of the population. Oh, that's the entire United States. And you're like, no. And as far as what government
That's
has
literally
actually
not what I'm
done,
saying.
yeah, yes, it is. If you're saying that the United States war machine is the United States, no, that is a small portion of what the United States does. Most people have never served. Most people have never lifted a firearm. Most people have never worn a uniform. The majority of the United States has never done anything to participate in a war. And in fact, the majority of the United States protests the wars. How many people have been out there? And actually, here's one of the things. Okay, so in the 1970s, when the Vietnam War was coming back, people were out there risking their lives for their friends and their families on the front lines. And when they came back, people were throwing eggs at them and rotten tomatoes. And all they were doing was doing their job and serving their country the best way they knew how. And yet when people are protesting the war, rather than the politicians who are signing the papers, rather than the politicians who are doing things either because they're going to get paid or because they're going to get votes or because they have some kind of back alley deal with some corporation who is going to make a profit off of this war endeavor or some other kind of nefarious purposes, rather than protesting the people who are making these decisions, you are protesting the people who are purely following orders. And that's what this kind of protest represents, is all of these people who are just doing what they want to do, who are living the lives they want to as free as possible. And you are protesting. You want to protest the people who are making their lives worse. You want to protest the people who are raising their taxes. You want to protest the people who are sending their sons and daughters off to die in a needless war. You want to protest those, and instead you put this huge umbrella over the entire country rather than the people who are responsible for the problem. Now, you mentioned Colin Kaepernick and how should he protest this so it would actually get national spotlight.
I have a couple things to say before that.
Okay.
Okay. One, the flag represents the country. Hey, shut up! You've talked long enough. When you have civilians, in a foreign land, see the American flag and their houses being destroyed, by our blind drone strikes, by our, supporting of vile, hateful, evil dictatorships, what are they going to see? Oh, they see the American flag. They see the tyranny of America. That's what literally what the majority of the world sees America as. Okay. There was a second thing I can't remember.
Yeah, you can't remember because you can't hold more than two thoughts in your head at the same time.
Okay,
so
let's lay off the insults. Let's lay off the insults. Let's just lay off the insults as as Matthew here is about to say.
So, okay, the the flag has come to represent. A flag has always represented a country. You know, the Nazi flag that represents Nazi Germany. The the white flag has come to represent France, or at least it did when they were using the white flag as their national flag. The Confederate flag represents the Confederacy. Sure, yes, there are different values, different ideas that these flags also represent, but most importantly, these flags represent the country. The American flag represents the United States of America. And what they are protesting is the actions of the United States of America. And what are the actions of the United States of America? You know, supporting dictatorships, eating away our right to privacy, trying to take away our right to freedom of speech by hyper-focusing on the outrage surrounding, kneeling down to the flag instead of really outrageous things like, the VA system being a complete clusterfuck, the massive number of homeless people who are veterans, and the fact that we're sending we're sending thousands of American soldiers overseas to die for conflicts that don't serve the American people, that they serve the interests of the elite, the corporates, to continue the American empire. Go ahead and respond.
All right, so you said 2 to 3 times that the U.S. flag represents the country. Now, does the government represent the country? It doesn't represent at least half, probably more than that, because not even half of the United States, or it's something, I think it's only 60 to 70% of the actual U.S. population votes. So we are actually electing our leadership based on if we were looking at the entire group, as if we were saying, oh, those who vote Republican and those who vote Democrat and those who don't vote at all, we are actually looking at someone who barely won out against the other third of the voting population. So there's still 3 sections of voters represented in voting. And we're talking about the majority here, the majority of a smaller portion of the actual United States population.
Well, that's true.
So the government is not the people. The government is not the people and is not the country. And you said the flag represents the country, and you are protesting by using the flag, by burning the flag, by, you said, wiping your ass with the flag, and by you're saying that, Colin Kaepernick is kneeling during the national anthem. And this is something you brought up earlier, so I'm going to say this. The correct way to show respect for the United States, not the United States government, not the United States president, not the Congress. You are showing respect for the country as a whole by standing at attention during the national anthem. And if you are in uniform and military, then you salute the flag. If you are not, then you put your hand over your heart and you face the flag. Those are the accepted ways to show respect during that particular time. And those are things that we have agreed on as a population. So if you don't do that, it is a sign of disrespect, not to the government, not to the president, but to the country as a whole, because the flag and the national anthem represent the country. That's what I'm trying to say. This is why I said you can't hold 2 thoughts in your head at the same time, because you stated repeatedly that the flag was the country, and then you go off and start talking about all the things our government has done.
I never said the flag was the country. I said it represents the country. Represents.
That's what I'm saying. You are saying it represents the country, and then you criticize the government that is defying the will of the people. Because if you look at the majority of popular opinions, or when anytime somebody polls these sorts of things, the actual people who wanted to go to war in the number of those instances, or the actual people who agree with what our government is doing, is the vast minority of people who agree with what the government has done in those instances. You can't separate the government from the country as a whole.
Go ahead.
I'm done. I said you can't seem to separate the government from the country.
We lost you again.
He said that you can't separate. You seem to not be able to separate the flag from the country. That's what he said.
No. That's not what I said. I said you cannot seem to separate the government from the country because the flag represents the country. The government does not represent the country. That is mine.
All right, my apologies for that. Anyway,
okay.
Matthew, you can respond.
Okay. The government is the acting arm. It is the acting arm of the country. Okay. What the government does tells the world what the country thinks, what the country does, even if we totally disagree with it. And I agree, our country functions as an oligarchy due to almost entirely money and politics. Corporations buying out politicians. That whole gist. But we're still stuck with the government being seen as representative of the country. We're still stuck with the flag being representative of the government and the country, because what do you see? What do you see behind the president whenever he speaks, or whenever some government official speaks? You see the American flag. You can't separate the two. Okay. When you protest a flag, you're protesting the government. Okay.
Are you done?
I just stopped talking.
Okay. So you just said the flag represents the government and the country. And the country. You know, there is a seal that represents the actual government. The White House represents the government. The White House does not represent the United States. Why don't you do something? Why don't you protest that? Make some kind of piece of art or some kind of protest using the White House or the actual seal of the United States government, which does not represent the United States. It represents the government. There are specific symbols that just represent the federal government.
Because how many people are going to know or care?
That doesn't matter. The only reason you are gaining, the only reason Colin Kaepernick, because I don't think you've actually gained any popularity for protesting the United States flag. The only reason
I don't want it.
getting attention is because people see him as protesting the military. People see him as protesting the American people. People are looking into it and be like, dude, this guy is a terrible person. How could he hate America? But he's actually protesting police brutality, right? So he is not getting the right message across. He is actually abusing the, or maybe abuse is the wrong word. He is playing off of people's emotions because there is so much emotion tied to the United States flag, dealing with so many things other than what he is actually protesting. Now, if you're saying, oh, well, he wouldn't get any attention otherwise, that is...
You want to know why he's drawn out so much controversy? It's not that people are being outraged by it. It's because you have the corporate media who sees it as an opportunity to not talk about police brutality, not to talk about the atrocities of our government, but to this rich, privileged football player is protesting, is shitting on our veterans. He hates veterans. You see how much this guy hates veterans? He's hating on our veterans. You're following the corporate media. What's the word?
Propaganda.
Propaganda. You're following mainstream media's propaganda. You're falling for it.
No, okay, so I'm going to jump in here. Okay, so you're saying that people are following the narrative of the media, and yet that's the exact same conclusion everybody who's not a part of the media and didn't follow any of these news coverage stories came to the same conclusion. That's the same thing when Westboro Baptists protest military funerals when they're protesting gay marriage. People say they hate the military. It's not that they hate gays, and yet that's what gets them attention. So they are abusing people's sympathy for our fallen soldiers, for our veterans, for the military members who were serving their country to the best of their abilities. And they were using it to build up a reputation for their organization. Now, are you in support of the protests of the Westboro Baptists when they protest military funerals? Do you agree with that? Do you think that is smart? Would you do the same for your cause?
I support the right to protest. I don't agree with their message.
Okay, so you don't agree with their message. Okay, but would you say that it is appropriate to protest a military funeral to protest the government's invasive wars and intervention in other countries? Is that the appropriate way to protest?
I don't care what's appropriate. I don't give a shit.
Does that get your message across, or does that hurt your message? I guess that's the better question. Is Colin Kaepernick, even though his heart may be in the right place, because he is choosing to protest in the manner that he is in order to gain attention, is actually turning more people that would otherwise listen to his cause and actually make him out in support of him. It is actually causing them to fall on the other side, because they're like, yeah, I agree with your sentiments. I'm actually in this camp. I agree with his sentiments. I do think that there is rampant police brutality. I think he's mostly focused on police brutality against black people, which is again, that's kind of absurd because there's rampant police brutality against people of all races. But it seems like people who would support him in his stand against police brutality are falling against him and are actually arguing against his position, because he is protesting more than just that. He is protesting everything the flag stands for, not just the one area that he finds fault with. And that is my problem with your position and what you are stating, is you are actually hurting your own cause, because anybody else looking at this situation is like, that guy hates America, that guy hates freedom, that guy hates our military, that guy hates all those people out in the rural areas who fly the flag in front of their houses because they believe in the country, not in the U.S. government, and they've never voted a day in their life. They're out there living off the land, they're off the grid, and yet they have the national flag on their property, because they believe in the values of the United States, not in people, not in a government, not in our military itself, but the people and the values of our country. And your protest looks like you're protesting all of that and not just that one aspect.
So you're saying it's all right for people to be purposely misinformed?
No, I'm saying you are purposely misinforming people in order to gain attention. That is your form of protest. Does that? You say any attention is good attention, even if it's for the wrong reasons.
No. I could make a YouTube video cutting a baby's throat and saying this is for abortion rights. That would give me the opposite of good attention. But
at least that would be protesting what you're actually protesting.
Kneeling for the flag. How much? How offensive is that? Like, he just kneeled. He didn't yell anything. He didn't say anything. He just kneeled.
Okay.
So how can you justify this much outrage over fucking kneeling for a flag, about as milquetoast as quiet of a protest you can do?
Because it's what it looks like he's protesting. It looks like he's protesting the entire country.
Yeah, it looks like that's not.
That's what people immediately jump to the conclusion, because
that's what the corporate media jumps to.
No, that is everybody who was at the stadium. They weren't listening to media. They were in the crowd, and they started booing because of what he was doing. So, maybe not and during the national anthem, because they were still at attention, but once they realized what he had done, they started, and people, it's not because of the media, it's because of what they thought he was protesting. Someone who kneels during the national anthem looks like they hate America. It's not the media that does that. If you saw that at a Little League game, you'd be like, what, I mean, I guess maybe you wouldn't see that, but everybody else in the crowd would say, what is wrong with this? Or whoever is doing that form of protest, they would be like,
Yeah, but well, why is it wrong to hate America?
because, well, if you hate America, just leave. That's
Why?
it's
I can't think of another country that has the freedom of speech in its
but
foundation documents.
but you hate America, so you hate freedom of speech.
I,
That's
I,
what
I
America
hate
stands for.
no. I hate America because
You
of
hate
what
what
the
America
government
is.
has come to represent. All right,
I agree
and
with you wholeheartedly there. I hate everything that the government has turned the American or the other people's perception of what America is. I hate the way that they have run our schools to indoctrinate people with propaganda about what the United States used to be as opposed to what it actually was. There are so many misinformed people in our United States who fail that very few people have read the Anti-Federalist paper. Very few people have read Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. Very few people have read any of the writings of Thomas Jefferson. Very few people have read anything from George Washington on the subject of government and how people wanted to elect him as king and how he refused it and how they specifically structured their constitution to avoid creating a government like we have today. Those were the patriots I was talking about in our Twitter conversation. It's like, yes, they may not have had the exact same flag, but it was still the flag of the United States, not the flag of the federal government, not the flag of the military, not the flag of some small group, but it was the flag of the entire country. And that is a symbol that everybody could rally around, regardless of their political differences, because it was the symbol of the country as a whole. And even back then, when it only had 13 stars and now it has 50, even back then, it was still, this is the symbol of our country. And so when somebody is protesting the symbol of the country, you cannot make the association that they mean just a small portion of that. Like, okay,
the government is not a small portion of that.
You can't say that you hate all four-sided objects when you mean just squares, because there are rectangles and there are what's the other one? Parallelograms and there's another one, but I can't think of the name at the moment. There are other things that particular category describes besides the thing that you hate.
Yeah, but the government is a huge portion of the country. It's what every foreign citizen sees when they see America. They see the government.
One at a time.
Are you a foreign citizen?
No.
Then why do you see the flag as just the government and not the United States as a whole?
I see it as both. Okay?
Exactly.
The problem with you is you're ignoring the government when you see the flag. You only see the values that it's supposed to represent.
No. It represents the American people and the government. Not just the government, but all of this other stuff. So when you protest the symbol of all of that other stuff and the government, you protest all that other stuff with the government. That is what I'm saying here.
Matthew, would you like to respond to
that? You're during this entire conversation, along with the Twitter chat, you've been only talking about the values and the people to the exclusion of the government.
Yes, because the government does not represent the will of the people, which is what I said earlier in this conversation. Now I'm saying the United States
the government
flag,
only functions with the consent of the people.
No, it doesn't. It functions without the consent of the people.
It doesn't. No.
What do you think taxation is? If you don't pay your taxes, they put you in jail. Now, is that the consent of the person who doesn't want to pay their taxes? No.
Do you pay taxes?
I do pay taxes because I consent to that.
But you give them the consent.
I consent to that. There are people who have gone to jail for not consenting. That isn't the will of the people. There are people who, I don't know about you, but there are people who who do not follow the speed limit. Well, then you're not consenting to the speed limit that is placed on that particular road. If you have people who murder do not consent to the laws of the land for that condone murder or that condemn murdering. That people are the government doesn't represent all of the people. It only is representing those people who consent to everything the government does. Which of that group, there are none, because even when there's groups of people who consent to one portion or another, they don't consent to the entirety of the government. There are plenty of people who are in favor of Roe v. Wade and love the fact that the abortion is legal in the United States, while they protest the fact that the United States military is invading other countries and taking over and becoming a totalitarian empire. Or,
excuse me a moment. I have to take care of something really quick. I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay. So in order to make sure that I'm not using this time to further my cause when he can't actually make any rebuttals, but let's change the conversation while he is away.
Okay. So how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing all right up until I got distracted by this stupid statements on Twitter. I've got other stuff to do, but
yeah, the chat is on fire for this stream. You got Zach and Aspie are lighting up the chat, or have been lighting up the chat. And this has been a pretty interesting stream besides the one I just had today with Loudmouth and like a number of other people for like 4 hours and shit. So I guess I did pull a Loudmouth for a little bit.
Yeah, how long has this stream gone on?
Oh, let me go check. Let me check. 31 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Man, time is going by.
Yeah, my first debate went on for almost 4 hours, which was about quite a while ago.
Yeah, I don't have time for that. Like I said, I've got other stuff to do today.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
I have already spent way too long in this argument.
All right, I'm back.
All right, what's going on?
What were you guys talking about?
Oh, we're just discussing. Okay, here's a new thing for you two. All right, so as long as you two can avoid cutting each other off, I'm not going to mute either of you. But if you both continue to cut each other off, I'm going to mute you. But I'll let you know that you have been muted, so you can unmute yourselves. Is that good?
Okay.
All right, you agree with that, Matthew?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to go forward with the next statement, go for it.
Honestly, my train of thought is completely gone.
Okay. Right, well, I was the one who spoke most the last, so I will give you a couple of seconds to find something.
To find something?
If not, I've got plenty more.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Shit. Not good at spontaneous shit. A couple cops out. Wow, 3 of them.
All right. Okay, so let's.
Drug dealer.
Okay, since you have nothing, you're drawing blanks. Yeah. Go ahead, HUMANe.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you're saying that the government represents the United States to all other countries, and yet there are plenty of businesses who deal with businesses in the United States that have nothing to do with the government other than the fact that the government takes out taxes within those trade deals. There are people who are actually avoiding the actual the rules of the government in order to do trade with the United States. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of them. They're called drug dealers. They completely circumvent the United States in order to do transactions with the people. So do they think that the United States government represents the people of the United States? Obviously not. Otherwise, they wouldn't deal with them, because those are the same company, or the military is normally the one who is invading their countries and destroying their crops and killing their people. And this is why we've had a 10-year war in Afghanistan. It is the #1 producer of opiates, which is a huge commodity in the United States. The Afghanistan people are selling opiates to the people of the United States, and the United States government is going in there and trying to wipe out that industry. It doesn't make any sense for the people of Afghanistan to associate the United States military with the people of the United States. I mean, unless they are completely moronic or backwards and unlearned, which is what it seems to say that you are saying about the entire world, in that they can't figure these things out for themselves. They can't differentiate the United States government from the United States people, because it seems that you can't make that differentiation.
What exactly did you say right there? Because that makes no sense at all.
Wow.
Drug dealers in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll send they'll sell opiates to
To the
American
United
interests,
States.
to American interests because they want money.
Yeah, but it's
I
if the United okay, so if the United States and its military were one and the same, they would be supporting the military that is currently attacking their industry. That makes no
well,
sense.
they kind of are. I mean,
And
have you not heard of the joke in Syria that Pentagon-backed terrorists are fighting CIA-backed terrorists?
yeah, that's because that's actually happening in Syria and Iran and a bunch of the Middle Eastern countries,
Yeah,
where the
you have
CIA
the
will
same
fund one
issue in
group.
Afghanistan.
Yeah, I don't get how that is the American people. The see, this is what I'm saying is you are saying that the government is the people, and I'm saying those two are distinct groups. The government is a portion of the people and is supposed to represent the people, is supposed to be their voice in the world, and it has not been for quite some time. Like you said, since World War II, every war that we have entered has been unjustified. Every war that we have entered has only led to the death of American people and hasn't gotten us anything. It hasn't been for anything other than war profiteering, and maybe in the case of Vietnam, where it was just like a show of power against the communist, even though it actually didn't do anything to hold off the communist invasion of South Vietnam, because everything we did there just kind of blew up in our faces and we didn't actually accomplish anything.
Okay, for the love of God, I'm going to say this one more fucking time.
Oh God.
The government represents the people. I never said the government is the people or the people is the government. I said the government represents the people. Can you get this thought through your head?
If that is the case, then protesting government means you hate the government. You hate the people of the United States. That's what I'm saying. Is if the government represents the
No,
people, protesting the government is protesting the American people.
no, you're protesting the government.
But you just said the government is the representation of the people.
No, the government represents the people.
That's what I just said. And you just
No,
repeated me
it's
back.
not. No, you said it's the representation of the people. No, the government
If the
represents the people.
representation, how is the representation
Now
different from the
we
government
all
representing
know
the people?
that the government doesn't actually represent the people in effect. It functions as an oligarchy. They follow the interests of the corporate elite, but in according to the letter of the law in our Constitution,
Was there more to that?
by
Or
the
did you cut
people
it
for
out?
the people.
Yeah, by the people, for the people. And if it is not by the people, which it is currently not, and if it's not for the people, which is currently not, then it isn't a true representation of the people. And so you can protest the government without protesting the people. But the way that you seem to imply is that the government is still currently by the people, for the people. And therefore, when you protest the government, then you are protesting the people that put that government in place and tell that government what to do. That's like saying, I hate what GM is doing, but I don't hate the CEO of GM. You can't separate the two because the GM or the CEO of GM is making GM do what it is currently doing. You cannot
I
separate
think your
the
analogy
two.
more applicable if you're saying, I hate GM what it's doing, but I don't hate the worker.
No, because the worker doesn't get a say in what GM is doing. It is the leaders of GM that tell it what to do. And if you
The
say
worker
that
actually absolutely has a say in what GM does. They can stop working, make GM shut down in a day.
if all of them combined together, yes, they could shut it down for a day, and then GM would hire new employees, and within a week they would be back up and running. They could replace their entire staff within several weeks to a month. So they would not be out of business permanently.
They'd be crippled for at least a quarter.
No.
Probably longer because you have all those specially trained people who you have no one to train them anymore.
All right, if you work at
But
Toyota,
anyway,
if you work at Toyota or a Honda plant and GM is offering you double your salary, are you going to wait 3 months before you take that? Or are you going to say, hey, I'm turning in my 2 weeks, and then in 2 weeks I'm going to be working at GM and I'm going to be making twice the money? Because if GM lost their entire staff, that is exactly what they would do. They would pay everybody through the nose
it's a
in order
stupid
to get their business
hypothetical,
up and running.
and I don't care. But
Because you were wrong, so then you don't care. But if you were right, then you would have cared, and your point would have been valid.
No, because you're taking it to an absolute. Okay, well, if you know, if I don't like if the American people don't like what the American government say, the American government can just import a whole bunch of Chinese, Mexicans, and Canadians and ship us all out.
No, because
that's exactly what happened if GM hired people from Toyota.
Yeah, except for the United States people are supposed to be in charge of the government. The government is supposed to represent us, but it doesn't. So the United States government cannot. The United States government can't kick the people out of the United States. We can kick the government out of the United States. That's exactly what the founders of this country did. They said, our government does not represent us. Taxation without representation. And what did they do? They fought against their government and kicked their government out of the country. The government didn't kick them out of the country. The government can't kick the people out of the country because the government is outnumbered by the people of the country. There are 320 million people in the United States. How many people are in the government? Is it more than 320 million? Is it more than 300 million? How many people do you think actually work for the United States government? That's a curious perception you have of who is actually in charge, or who could be in charge of the entire country? Who could kick who out?
Well, who has the largest military that has ever been? The government. Sure. The American people have guns, but they have tanks and better guns.
And like I said earlier, the United States has been in a 10-year war in Afghanistan, fighting against people with AK-47s and rocket launchers, and no tanks, no drones, no fighters, no aircraft of any kind, improvised explosive devices, and a 10-year war against the strongest military that the world has ever seen. 10 years with sheep herders, with rocket launchers and AK-47s. You know what's illegal in the United States to own? Anti-aircraft weapons. Anti-aircraft. So these are big mounted guns that it's basically like a stationary tank that fire munitions into the air, similar to mortars. That is legal to own in the United States.
Not if it fires an explosive shot.
One at a time. This is my final warning. If you two continue to talk over one another, you're both getting muted.
If he keeps on moving from one point to another without letting me respond, how are we going to have this discussion?
I'll intervene if he starts going from one topic to the next. All right.
He just did. He went from the war in Afghanistan to what kind of weapons you can own in America.
All right, Ham, you go ahead and respond to his first statement.
You're assuming we're actually fighting a war to win a war in Afghanistan. We're in Afghanistan to keep the mineral rights, to keep the opium, to keep the American interests, intact there. Okay. Well, we're not actually in there to actually fight the Taliban.
The hell?
Did you mute him, or?
No, I didn't.
It shows that he's muted now.
The hell? I didn't.
Sorry, that was my alarm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I can only stay here for a few more minutes.
All right, let's try to wrap this up. This shit show up.
So let's readjust the original point. The treatment of the American flag. I maintain that it is absolutely right to treat the flag however you want, because the values behind that flag is freedom of speech. You have that right to burn a flag, to kneel down for the flag. Ever since the Supreme Court decision in 1969.
Okay, and I'm in agreement with you. I am not saying you don't have the right to do that. I'm saying you are stupid for doing that. Because rather than pissing off the people you intend to piss off, which is the United States government and their military complex, you are instead pissing off average Americans who, when they see you doing those sorts of things, don't think, oh, this guy's protesting the government. No, they're thinking, this guy hates freedom of speech, this guy hates the right to bear arms, this guy hates everything that is in the Bill of Rights, this guy hates the entire history of the United States, this guy hates government, or this guy not hates governments, but hates groups that fight against a tyrannical government, because that is what the United States represents. That is our history. That is our heritage. That is what the founding fathers of this United States, that is what they did. They are one of the few examples in history of the little guys winning against the military-industrial complex. And now we have become that. And you think by destroying the symbol or by disrespecting the symbol of the country as a whole that you are fighting against the military-industrial complex, and you are not. Because other people looking in on the situation won't come to that same conclusion that you have. Instead, they will come to the conclusion that you are the same as the terrorist who burned the United States flag while shouting death to America. They, in their minds, see you as the same as them. They can't make the distinction because you are doing the same actions. You are doing the same behaviors as the people who hate America as a whole, and not the U.S. government.
I believe there's a fundamental difference between a protester burning a flag here in the United States and some terrorist in a backwater hellhole burning the flag.
What is the difference? Location?
One's a insane jihadist with a imperialistic ideology. Islam is a incredibly supremacist, imperialistic ideology, and a American citizen is simply protesting the government, using their constitutional rights. However, way you may disagree with it.
All right, so you have the right to protest and you have the right to freedom of speech, so you should be able to throw on a bedsheet, cut out eye holes, and go burn crosses on people's yard while claiming it's in the name, while claiming that it's a protest against abortion. Will people
Actually,
think,
no, you don't. You can't burn anything on someone else's property.
You can't burn it on their property, right? Yeah, you can burn it on private property or on public property with a permit.
Yeah, with a permit. And I say, that's fine. Okay. That's perfectly legal. You're just stupid. You're hilarious.
Let's leave out the insults for this one, guys.
No. I'm saying if you put on a bedsheet and you go to a public area with permission and you burn a cross, are people going to think, oh, those guys are definitely in their right minds. Those guys are protesting abortion. Are you? Because their ideology isn't the same as the KKK, which is famous for putting on white costumes with eye holes and burning crosses. Do you not see that people will make the association between your protest and the KKK and not bother to look that, hey, you guys are for different causes because you're doing the same actions. You are taking the same, you are presenting yourselves in the same manner.
Well, yeah, because you dress yourself like a KKK person and doing burning crosses, which is synonymous with the KKK.
And
you're doing KKK things.
And when you are burning the United States flag, you are doing the same thing that people who hate America as a whole do. So you are associating yourself with them.
No, I don't. I disagree.
One group that is famous that has burned the United States flag that wasn't against the United States as a whole?
Pretty much everyone in the United States.
That, like, individuals, right? You're talking about individuals, not groups or
Individuals and groups. Individual groups and movements. I can't think of a single one that was, against America entirely.
What?
Martin Luther King Jr. Actually had some funny things to say about America, calling it the greatest purveyor of violence in the world.
Yeah, and did he run a United States flag to prove his point?
I don't believe he ever did.
No.
But I do. I do believe other people in the civil rights movement did do that.
Yeah, and they were ridiculed, and people viewed them as hate groups and terrorist groups rather than as peaceful protesters. Because the way that they actually achieved progress and they actually achieved the results that they were looking for in their protest was by protesting and marching against the government itself peacefully. And this is something that most people overlook, and this is something I have said I've been saying for years. It's something that people overlook. In Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, as soon as, almost immediately after that, he goes on for a much longer little tirade about how it must be peaceful, because anything that they do that is violent, or anything they do that makes them look in a negative, or that shines a negative light on their movement altogether, will destroy their movement. Anything that makes them look like they are violent, or anything that makes them look that they are hateful, anything that makes them look like they are not there to promote peace in order to change the law, will hurt their cause and will destroy it completely. And this is what I'm saying about your particular cause. So you asked how Colin Kaepernick could have done something to protest the government. Well, he should follow the example that Martin Luther King set up, where they had a 1 million man march on Washington. If the problem is Washington, or if the problem is the police force, you stage a protest in that same manner. He is a multi-millionaire. Do you not think he could set aside a couple $1,000s for a protest to say, hey, I'm going to file the paperwork, we're going to start a protest, and we're going to protest the actual root of the problem?
He's donated several million to I forget the name of the cause, but he's donated several $1 million.
I would assume Black Lives Matter. But
not black. It's some charity charity that helps some kids in Africa, something like that.
But what does that have to do with his current protest? Because that's kids in Africa aren't being shot by our cops.
He's not limited to one thing, okay?
But that was his original statement. He was talking about this situation with the Black Lives Matter, where they were under the impression that the cops were being extremely, what's the word I'm looking for, prejudiced against black people, or black criminals. And they were firing indiscriminately against black people, but were holding their fire against white. So that was the impression. And that's when he came out and made a statement, is he was talking about the oppression of the police on the black community.
Okay. And
so if that was his belief, and he has the money, he could organize, and he's not the most well-known figure, but he's well-known enough because he's in the national spotlight, being a member of the NFL, that he could have easily organized a march against Washington or against his local police station or whoever it is he thinks is the problem. And that is how a successful protest actually occurs.
Yeah,
Burning the flag accomplishes nothing. It just pisses people off.
Well, would that have gotten him nearly the attention that kneeling down to the flag? By the way, he didn't even burn the flag; he just kneeled. Let's keep that in mind. He kneeled.
You in the Twitter conversation were talking about burning the flag and wiping the flag or wiping your ass with the flag.
Yeah, because I'm a confrontational fuck.
It's true.
That doesn't make any sense to me, because the flag represents the Constitution anyway.
I mean, I think it just comes down to the simple thing of people have different ideas of the flag.
All right, so you mentioned that you were a constitutionalist. So if you had the Constitution in your hands, would you burn it or wipe your ass with it or kneel on it or do something else to disrespect it?
I've never described myself as a constitutionalist, but I wouldn't because the
You just
Constitution.
said, unless you were saying that in jest. Were you saying that in jest that you were a constitutionalist?
I don't think I ever actually said constitutionalist because I think that means something else.
Do you know
But
do you know what a constitutionalist is?
Somebody in the chat, tell me if I'm crazy in hearing things. I just heard him say that like a minute ago.
no,
Am I hearing things? Am I going crazy here? He said I am a constitutionalist.
if I
And
did,
then,
I don't believe I said that. But it's beside the point. If I had the Constitution or the Bill of Rights in my head, I would not wipe my ass with it or desecrate it because it is the
a
idea.
piece of paper.
The Bill of Rights is
A
the
piece
freedom
of
of
paper.
speech. It's written down there.
It is a piece of paper.
Okay, I got a message.
I mean, it is a piece of paper, but it has the ideas written down on it.
I guess I should state more accurately, it is a piece of parchment because it's not actually paper, but parchment would be more accurate.
Oh, you're talking about the actual Bill of Rights? Oh,
I'm
God, that's a historical document.
I'm gonna have to cut in here for a second. The Incredible Aspie just said in the chat, "Whoa, Coldham just went full retard." He says, "Not my words, I promise." He did say constitutionalist. He did say it.
Okay, that's stand corrected.
That's why I brought it up, because I was like, wait a minute. It's because that holds some, like I would hope that holds.
I mean, I probably said I believe in the Constitution or something like that, or something along that line.
Okay, I'll let's go to the definition of a constitutionalist so we can just clear this up right now. Constitutionalist. Constitutionalism is the idea often associated with political. Constitutionalism is the idea often associated with political theories of John Locke and the founders with quotes of the American Republic and equated with the concept of the rule of law, with quotes again, that government can and should be legally limited in its powers and that its authority depends on enforcing, and then it goes on to some other page that I'm not going to read, but there's your definition. All right, let's move on.
That doesn't sound too disagreeable to me.
All right.
Nor to me. I mean, I understand. I completely agree with the idea behind it.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys want to say, or if you guys have nothing left to say, you can go ahead and make closing statements.
I really don't have a closing statement.
Okay. I think I said everything, and I thought I had said my closing statement about 15 minutes ago, but
yeah,
I will kind of reiterate it here. The flag represents more than just the United States government. So if you are going to disrespect the flag, other people looking at your protest or looking at what you are doing are not going to see you as disrespecting the government or disrespecting police brutality or disrespecting some other kind of institution. They're going to see you as disrespecting Americans as a whole. It is their perception of your protest that matters. And if you want to achieve a successful protest against something that actually does need to get changed, you have to organize a march or a petition or something that focuses on the area that needs to be fixed. Because without that, people will look at all the other aspects. They will look at every other thing that your protest could mean, as opposed to focusing on the actual thing that needs to be fixed.
All right. Okay. So are you happy with your closing statement, HUMANe?
Yes.
All right.
I'll say one last thing.
All right.
Okay. I believe the this whole thing about disrespecting a flag. I maintain that the when you disrespect a flag, you're protesting the government for which that flag stands to represent. I mean, shit. I maintain that the When you protest the flag, you're protesting the government that flag represents, um, and that if you believe that someone like Colin Kaepernick or whoever, when they disrespect the flag or desecrate it, I believe that if they believe that you're disrespecting or hating the military and the veterans and the rights and the values, you're just looking to be offended. That's what I believe. And
All right.
this is all,
Yeah.
yeah. And this is all just a distraction, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that? The closing with your closing.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm all right with it. If not my best.
Okay, so that would be the live debate between Cold Ham and Humane. Thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you two have gotten what you had to say off your chest, and thanks for watching, everyone. Till next time.
Thanks for the opportunity.